Good morning, Yidden. Welcome back. Very excited to get back into our smicha, bring our brains back into Taruvis. All right, so this week we're looking at Siman Kuf Beis, Siman 102. We're still in the broader sugya that we discussed in Kuf and Kuf Aleph, which are limitations to the general rule of bittul. Biblically speaking, or in principle, Torah recognizes, I'm saying in principle because there are rabbinic elements as well, but in principle, the halacha recognizes the fact that one thing can be nullified in another, and when it is, we consider it as if the thing doesn't exist. And to a large degree, everything we're doing in Taruvis revolves around exactly that. Tam Kaker, flavor is there, okay, so it's not nullified. Flavor is not there. Why is it not there? Is it been overwhelmed by flavor? Or is it min b'minoi, and the flavor automatically is gone? And therefore, biblically, it's nullified. Rabbinically, not. All of that it all surrounds this principle that Torah recognizes that if something is nullified in something else, it's as if it doesn't exist. Now, we're discussing limitations to that. Some of the limitations can be biblical, some of them are rabbinic. The limitation we're going to be learning today, it's a machlokes if it's rabbinic or biblical. And the two limitations we had so far is beria and chaticha roilas kabit. Two things that have chashivus, because they have a chashivus, because they have a, how do you translate chashivus? Importance, a certain level of importance, either halachic importance like the beria, or conventional importance like the chaticha or liskabed. It's the kind of thing you would serve to your guest. So we're going to limit the bittul. We can't say it's as if it's not existent. What do you mean it's not existent? The halacha gives it a credit, gives it value. But beria, what do you mean it doesn't exist? It's something you would serve to your guest. It's something that you would treat with that kind of level. What could you say it's nullified as if it doesn't exist? So these are limitations to the general principle acceptance of bittul. Sorry, you want to close the door? Oh, yeah, okay, first, thank you. Today we have another limitation on bittul, another thing which Torah says, we're sorry, it can't be bittul now. Yeah. So we're going to start with the principle, and then we're going to limit the principle. So we're limiting. Few negatives make a positive, right? So we're going to put down a principle which says a certain type of thing is never going to be nullified. And then we're going to say, well, actually, the limitations to when it's never nullified, and therefore it is nullified. That's how the Siman is going to be broken down. Starting off with the thing that's not nullified, and then saying, well, not always is it not nullified. Sometimes it is nullified. That's going to be how the trajectory of the Siman goes. Especially that Ramah at the end is going to list a bunch of different ways in which that is the case. So what's the matter in question? This is Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin. That's the halacha terminology. Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin. If you see what's the word? Rosh Tevis. How do you translate Rosh Tevis?
First letters of each.
There's an English word for it.
Acronym.
Acronym, thank you. Daled, Shin, Lamed, Mem. That refers to Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin. Daled, Shin Aleph, Lamed Mem, Davar She'ein Lo Matirin. So what does that mean? Literally translates Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin means a matter that has permissibility, and the missing word in the description is in the future. That's the word that's missing from the sentence. Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin is
Will be permitted.
Will be permitted. That which one day will be permitted. It's only forbidden now, but in the future will be permitted. And because in the future will be permitted, it isn't nullified. Okay, that's the principle. Before we get to the limitations of that, which limitations of that would mean that even though it has permissibility in the future, we're still going to say it's nullified, which is the rest of the Siman. Right, the beginning starts off with the halacha Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin in a bottle. I feel the elef, even in 1,000, something which will become permissible in the future, even if it's 1 in 1,000 ratio, not nullified. But in the future, later the Siman is going to say, well, under X circumstance, it could be nullified. Under other circumstances, it could be nullified. But before we get there, what would you say would be the reason, if you had to think logically, why would something that is going to be permitted in the future not nullified now? What would you say?
I did this already, so I don't want to.
You did it. You learned the phase?
Yeah, a long time ago, so I did.
Okay. How many reasons do you have in your head from what you learned a long time ago?
I have the main one. I'm trying to think if there's a second one.
There's two. It's machlekes, Rashi, Ram. So think. One would be logical. Rashi's would be straight logical, just on its own. You don't have to have any halachic background, right? What's the point of nullification?
It doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. Okay. Now,
It will exist in the future. How can it not exist?
exactly. If you can eat it in a way that's clean, why eat it in a way that's iffy? If anyways, tomorrow afternoon, it's going to be okay to eat completely, fully halachically. So why should you rely on nullification? The fact that the Torah says that this thing doesn't exist is a halachic, I don't want to use the word invention, but it's a halachic principle. The reality is, as we've spoken about before, my soup was 59 ounces and now it's 60 ounces. What do you mean it doesn't exist? It's an ounce bigger. The halacha doesn't consider it to be a problem. Okay, good. But why should I rely on that halachic invention, so to speak, if anyways I can eat it clean tomorrow? That's where Rashi explains it. There's a very sound and logical thing to say. Right? If you're going to be eating it in a forbidden, while it's still forbidden, relying on nullification, eat it when it's not forbidden. What was it on? Remember?
It has to do with oaths.
Okay, the oath is one example, but not necessarily connected on. The oaths are one example of something that has permissibility. So let's say this thing is forbidden because I vowed to not eat it. There's a process by which I can undo my vow. So therefore, if the thing that I vowed not to eat fell into something else, it would not be nullified. I would not be allowed to eat that entire mixture, even if it's 1 in 1,000. If I wanted to, I can go to the Rav, get my vow undone, and eat the whole thing kosher. So why should I rely on the nullification? Following Rashi's explanation. That's one example. The most classic example of the Gemara that the Shulchan Aruch is going to give coming from the Gemara. Okay, we'll get to more detail in a second, but the example basically is Beitza Shenolda B'Yom Tov. The beginning of Masechta Beitza, if anyone learned it, right? Where the Gemara discusses an egg that was laid on Yom Tov. And as the Gemara explains, after 6 pages of back and forth, the Gemara does there, yeah? Famous Gemara at the beginning of Beitza. The conclusion there is, it's forbidden because it's noilod, which means it's muktzah, something which wasn't available to you at the beginning of Yom Tov, now becomes available to you. Because it wasn't available to you, it was muktzah, it was set aside as something that doesn't exist when Yom Tov started. So its arrival now, it remains as if it doesn't exist the whole Yom Tov. Which means the second Yom Tov is over, I'm going to be allowed to eat that egg. So it's a thing that will be permitted in 12 hours from now. So even if that egg fell into a mixture of 1,000 eggs, I would not be allowed to eat any of those 1,000 eggs. Whether they fell in whole or scrambled all together, forbidden. That's the classic example. There are other such examples. I was hoping you were thinking about chametz and Pesach.
Oh, no.
We're going to leave it alone. We're going to get to that when we get to halacha l'maisa. I want to discuss that. It's a whole different story because chametz has its own rules. But in theory, at least according to some opinions, as we see in the Ramah, chametz Pesach could fall in the category of Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin. Right now it's forbidden because it's chametz. After Pesach, will be permitted. Not chametz owned by a Jew because that would be forbidden forever. Rabbinically, at least. Yeah. And as we're going to learn, especially following Rashi's view, even something which is forbidden rabbinically, if it has matirin in the future, don't eat it now in nullification for the same logic. Instead of eating it now, when the sages say it's forbidden and relying on a nullification, wait till the sages say it's okay to eat and then eat it. Right? That logic. And therefore, if something is rabbinically forbidden, it could be nullified. That's not something that has permissibility in the future. But chametz that's not owned by a Jew, which falls into a Jewish mixture, that could be something that has permissibility in the future, because if Pesach's over, it will become kosher. Okay, that's a discussion which we'll leave for Chazar L'maisa, it's going to be mentioned in the Ramah, and it is sometimes relevant. Okay, so that's logic number one. Rashi's logic, very straightforward. It's a rational thing. You have the capacity to eat it completely kosher in an hour or 12 hours or tomorrow or after you speak to the Rav to get your vow nullified. Why rely on the nullification? Reason one. Reason two comes from the Ran. The Ran gives a more halachic twist to the situation. This halachic twist is relevant. We'll see in a minute. The halachic twist is like this. How does the process of nullification work in Torah? The process works like this. You have one item against another item. Now, item A overpowers item B. Yeah. If they're of the same type, right?
The majority.
Right, but looking at the rationale, if it's the same type, then really item A is not overpowering item B. Item A and item B are merging. So how do you have nullification in bin minoi? Even in Roiv. How do you have min bin minoi at all? You don't have opposite flavors. It's not like one thing is overpowering the other. If it's min bin mishe'ena minoi, he ties this into machlekes Yehuda Chacham, which we're not going to go down, but just the logic of it. If you're looking at min b'she'ena minoi, you're looking at two different types. So type A is overpowering type B. Very good. But if they're both type A, they're both the same thing, how is one thing overpowering the other? They're not. They're strengthening each other, actually. So how does nullification work when you have two of the same type? Because the halacha says they're opposite. This is permitted, this is forbidden. And the forbidden or the permitted is overpowering the forbidden. So the only nullification that exists in min bin minoim, in the Ran's view, or the way that Ran's explaining it, is only if one is absolutely forbidden, one is absolutely permitted, and the absolutely permitted is overpowering the absolutely forbidden. Because otherwise, they're two of the same thing and they're strengthening each other. They're just adding. When I add an ounce of water to 5 ounces of water, it's not as if the ounce of water was nullified to the other ounces of water. They became one large cup of water. If it's milk and soup, okay, the milk is no longer recognizable. Great. Water and water, you don't say that. It's only because Torah says that ounce is forbidden. These ounces are permitted. The permitted is overpowering the forbidden. Therefore, says that I'm wrong. Something which is going to be permitted in the future, I cannot say it's opposite to that which is here permitted. They're actually both permitted items. This is technically being withheld from my eating because time doesn't let me eat it. But it's actually two permitted things interacting. And when two permitted things are interacting, there's nothing to overpower the other. Follow? And therefore, if something is going to be permitted in the future, it's not nullified now because there's no two opposites interacting. There is no type A overpowering type B. Type A can only overpower type B if Torah says type A is permitted and type B is completely forbidden. But if type B is also really permitted, just not now, then type A isn't overpowering it. So according to the Ran, it's not like the Rashi, which says,
So therefore we can have it now or we can't have it now?
if we can have it now, it's not nullified.
We can.
It's not nullified.
We can.
You cannot, because it's not nullified, because nothing's overpowering it.
It cannot be nullified.
Because it can't be nullified. Nullification only works when there's two types, one's overpowering the other. But in the case of something that's got to be permitted, there's no two types. They're both kosher meat or kosher eggs. It just so happens, Torah says, don't eat it right now because it was born on Yom Tov. But they're kosher, they're all eggs. So which eggs are overpowering which eggs? They're all just eggs. If something is forbidden and this is a nevela, this is kosher. So nevela is type A. Kosher shechted meat is type B. Type B is overpowering type A. But if it's all kosher meat, it just so happens I can't eat it because I took a vow. Then what is overpowering what? It can't. Nothing's overpowering. In other words, Rashi is saying, really, nullification does happen. But don't rely on it. Wait till you can eat it anyway. Because anyway, after Yom Tov, it's going to be okay to eat. So nullification is not happening. But why rely on nullification? While you're eating it, when it's forbidden, you might as well wait till it's permitted. Really? Nullification is happening. Don't rely on it. Ron's saying nullification isn't happening, B'chlal, because you don't have type A overpowering type B. Because they're all kosher items interacting of the same type. Which means, according to the Ran, Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin, bottle or not. Say again.
Not bottle because
It's two types. Min b'she'ena minoi.
then
So it's the egg that was born on Yom Tov being mixed into a salad. It's scrambled up, so I can no longer identify it. Or mixed into a soup and scrambled, let's say. Yeah, so now I can't identify where the egg is. It's completely mixed into the soup. Nullified or not nullified?
yeah, that's nullified because it's different.
There's two types. According to the problem of Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin is you don't have an A overpowering a B. I do have an A overpowering a B. A is the soup, B is the egg. One nullified than the other. And Taka the Shulchan Aruch concludes, as we're going to learn, that Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin, right, where it's not nullified, only applies to min b'minoi. If it's min b'she'ena minoi, it is nullified, even though an hour from now it's going to be permitted. So according to the Ran, that makes perfect sense. Nonetheless, the Shach and the Taz are going to substantiate this halachic distinction between min b'she'ena minoi and min b'she'ena minoi, even according to Rashi. Which is why? If Rashi says you might as well wait till it's totally kosher, why rely on the nullification? So who cares if it's min b'minoi, b'she'ena minoi? Eat it, wait till it's kosher. From that rationale. So how do you justify the difference between min b'minoi versus min b'she'ena minoi according to Rashi? So explains the Teres Chatos quoted by both the Shach and the Taz as follows. The Shach actually substantiates it much more. The Taz is the one that just told you what I said, that according to the Ran, it becomes clear why min b'she'ena minoi will be bottled, even though yesh lo matirin. Because I have type A overpowering type B. And he says, according to Rashi, difficult to accept that when it's be'ena minoi, it's bottled. Because hey, why rely on the bittul? Wait till after Shabbos. Wait till after Yom Tov, whatever the case is. Wait till you go to the Rav and get your down nullified. Yeah? Okay. Nonetheless, says the Taz like this, says the Shach, I'm sorry, like this, quoted the Teres Chatos. It's a very subtle thing. He says like this. When min b'minoi interact, kosher and not kosher, I actually want the nullification. Why do I want the nullification? Because I wanted meat. That's what I want to eat for lunch. Right? So when the non-kosher piece of meat falls in, I'm very happy with that nullification. Because I have more meat. That's what I want to eat. It's min b'minoi. That's what I wanted. That's when Rashi says, okay, you need to have a bona fide nullification. And because in a few hours from now, you're going to be able to eat it kosher, and you want to eat that thing, wait till it's kosher, please. Because you want that extra piece of meat in your mixture. Because you're eating meat today for lunch. Okay, so if that's the case, wait till it's totally kosher. Don't eat it now when it's not really kosher and it's nullified. But when it's min b'she'ena minoi, when it's milk falling into, let's just say milk falling into soup, that's not going to have that's not a Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin. But when it's the little bit of egg that was born and fell into my soup, I actually don't want that egg. The nullification here is, if it were up to me, I would want that egg to fall in to begin with. And nevertheless, Rashi would say, okay, let the nullification work for you because you don't want it there anyway.
That's the difference between lechatchila and b'diavad.
They're both b'diavad because I can't nullify it lechatchila in vatan is lechatchila. Right? I couldn't go ahead and do that. But post factum,
No, but if
in the case of
the meat, you wanted the meat, that's lechatchila.
no, I'm not.
In your first case, you said you wanted it.
Right. Okay.
If you wanted the meat, then you'd have to wait. You could not do it. But if you didn't want it, so how did it happen if you didn't want it?
Okay, so I see the mistake with let's clarify. When I say I want it, it's not the pshat that I'm putting it in the lechatchila. Ein mevatel is lechatchila. What it means is that the mixture in front of me, I'm very happy with the bittul. Post factum, I'm very happy with this bottle. Is now I get an extra slice of meat? No, I can't. I'm not allowed to do it intentionally. But the piece of meat fell in. I'm very happy with the bittul. Great, I got an extra piece of meat in my mixture. I'm very happy with that bittul. So says Rashi, that's the kind of bittul. Wait, it's going to be kosher anyway. But if it's the kind of bittul where I actually was hoping that the egg would not fall into that seed, and if, as far as I'm concerned, I'd rather not have bittul because I'd rather not have that egg in there. I didn't want to have egg in my chicken soup. So in that case, what Rashi will say, says Shach, Tersachatos, okay, in that case, we can rely on bittul Yom Tov, even though it's going to be kosher in an hour from now. So even according to Rashi, min b'shein minoy will be batal, even though it will be kosher later, even though it's a Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin. After the Shach explains, substantiates the halacha even according to Rashi's view. Clear? Clear so far? In other words, let's put it this way. In the Ran, it's much neater. Even though at the beginning, when you hear it first, Rashi makes so much sense. Right? Okay, it's going to be kosher anyway. Why rely on bittul? Wait till you don't have to rely on bittul. And according to Ran, it's like this, like the subtlety. Bittul only works when you have type A against type B. When it's going to be kosher later, they're not considered type A and type B. It's just all type A. Right? It's a much more subtle thing. But then when you dive down into it, what happens is like this. Rashi is telling you it's punitive. Torah says it's totally in the bottle. Come the sages and say, don't rely on that Torah principle that we allowed. The Torah is telling you, don't rely on the principle we created because what? It's punitive. Because anyways, it's going to be kosher later. Don't eat it now. So I'm only going to be punitive, is what the Torah is not to say, is when the nullification works to your benefit. And you're too excited about the nullification. Because, hey, I got an extra slice of meat. Okay, wait, only rely, and if it's going to be kosher later, don't eat it now. So only punitive to you when you're happy with the nullification. Whereas according to Ran, it's all a question of halachic principle. If Torah says it's nullified, it's nullified. Because you have type A, nullifying type B, it's nullified. Period. Because Torah says it's nullified. When it's min, bin minoy, and it's going to be kosher later, Torah says it's not nullified because they're both the same type. For the Ran, it's a completely halachic principle. It's not punitive whatsoever. It's the Torah structure of how nullification works. And nullification only works when you have two opposing types. And in the case where it's going to be kosher in 5 hours, you don't have two types. It's completely halachic. So in the end, Ran becomes much neater. So much so that there are those that say that the Ran would say this whole thing is biblical. That's all a question of what are the principles of bittul. In the Rashi, it's definitely going to be Chachamim. The Chachamim are putting a sanction on you because you have a way out later. And you're too happy with the nullification, so wait till later when you don't have to rely on that nullification that you like. So it's definitely going to be rabbinic according to Rashi. But according to Ran, you can make the argument, as many do, that it's biblical. It's all the Torah structure of how nullification works. And nullification only is when type A nullifies type B, and when a thing is going to be kosher later, it's not type A against type B. It's all kosher eggs. The Torah says don't eat for a few hours. That's all kosher eggs. No nullification happens. It's all a halachic, neat, halachic, organized thing. So it's funny how when you start out, Rashi seems much more attractive because it has a rationale. It's going to be kosher later. Don't rely. Then when you dig into it, the Ran comes out much neater in a certain way. It's just a question of halachic principles. Torah says it's nullified. It's nullified. I don't care if it's going to be kosher later. Torah says it's nullified. It's nullified. Finished. Done. Torah here doesn't say it's nullified. Finished. It's much neater. Okay. That's the general principle, which is laid out mostly in Sif Aleph and the Shach and the Taz, as explained. Then, as I mentioned, the Shulchan Aruch said to keep on going for the rest of the Siman to talk about when Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin doesn't apply, and therefore it is nullified. Okay. So most of that we're going to cover in Chazar L'Maisa, because we'll go through the actual text, and we're going to bring practical examples of how that goes. But let's just go through some of the principles so we understand them. Okay. There's machlekes amongst the Balei HaTosfos, the Riyah ben Tam. if, let's just use the example of the egg. If something is prohibited by doubt, I don't know if the egg was born on Yom Tov or not. And now it fell into a batch of eggs. Yeah. So Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin, Matzi Yom Tov, it's going to be permitted. So ordinarily I wouldn't touch that egg because I don't know if it was born on Yom Tov or not. But now that it's mixed into the next thing, do I treat it as like such a far doubt already?
Like it's almost like a space.
Almost like a svek sveka. Not exactly, but almost like a svek sveka. Yeah? Because it's going to be kosher later. Sorry, because A, I'm not sure if it's aser b'chlal now. And B, it's nullified already. Yeah, machlikas. Ibn Tam and the Ri. Okay? The Shulchan Aruch paskins to be stringent like the Ri, which means even if you're not sure if the egg was born in Yom Tov, even if you're in doubt, because it's going to be kosher later, not nullified, even if it's in doubt. Now, the Bach wanted to argue on the Shulchan Aruch, the Shach substantiates the Shulchan Aruch, and the Alter Rebbe also does. The Alter Rebbe also paskins that even if you're not sure if the egg was born on Yom Tov, you wouldn't be able to eat it, even if it got mixed into 1,000 other eggs, because it's going to be kosher later after Yom Tov. But he adds,
Wouldn't that all depend if you accepted the decision of the Rashi before or the Ran?
well, it's min b'minoi. It's min b'minoi. It's eggs falling into other eggs. So everybody agrees. Because the whole principle of Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin is only min
I
b'minoi.
understand, but if we say that it's a biblical principle, or we say it's a rabbinic principle, that probably would make a difference.
Okay, yeah. So
according to the Ran, who's finding it like a biblical principle, the Rashi's finding it like a rabbinic principle.
Very good.
So like a rabbinic principle, it's one level on another, one stringency on another.
So there are taka those who want to learn the machlekes that way. There are taka those who want to learn the machlekes. This is a major pilpul, what you're touching on. Because taka some want to learn that way, but others learn differently. Because others learn that even Ran is really a rabbinic definition of a biblical principle, not because the biblical principle etzim is that way. So it gets more involved in that. But you are touching on the correct direction of where the whole pilpul and a lot of the Mefarshi Hasha, it's not even on the Shulchan Aruch, just in the Gemara, just Mefarshim on the Gemara and Rashi and Ran that discuss this idea. Yeah, so you're in the right direction. But the Alter Rebbe adds, and I want to say this because the opportunity to bring the Alter Rebbe, we're going to bring the Alter Rebbe, which says that like this: on the second day Yom Tov, right? So you're not sure if the egg was born on Yom Tov or not on the first day, and now it's second day Yom Tov. Says the Alter Rebbe, now you can eat that egg. Because it's svek, now it's taka svek sveka. It's a double suffix.
Would you have known?
A, it's suffix, it's Yom Tov today, b'chal. B, it's suffix if he was even born on Yom Tov, even if it was Yom Tov today.
Just understand, if you knew on day one that it was born on that day, you wouldn't be able to have it.
Then you wouldn't be allowed to.
Because there's a doubt as to whether
It's one doubt.
So now it's fake.
Yeah. If you're not sure if it's born the first day and the second day, yeah. Okay. There's something else I wanted to add, but again, if we go back to, okay. When we say, here's where, okay, I want to say it before we talk about Rashi and Ran. Here's where it gets even more tricky. Because the Ramah tells us like this. The Ramah tells us that if it's min b'she'ene minoi, right? Egg into your soup, right? Egg into your soup, but you actually wanted that egg there. You want to give your soup a white hue. That's the way Ramah puts it. Then I realized that I put the wrong egg in. I put the egg that was born on Yom Tov. So I have a batch of eggs.
It's not butter.
What? Oh, so, but according to Ran, would I say it's bottle? According to Ran, I probably would say it's bottle. It's min b'she'ene minoi.
Depends if it's like it's your masad. Did you want if it's your masatzma or?
So it is just a machmatzatz, like it's an egg born on Yom Tov.
Yeah, but no, but in your stew, is it like is the item you added? Then it's actually is there versus
Change the flavor.
like if it's adding a
Oh,
flavor,
gosh.
then it's you know what I'm
Grandma's
saying?
going to add that also.
It's
If it's the
there.
kind of flavor that I want, and it adds a flavor, I'm going to treat it like min b'minoi, not bottle. If I wanted the coloring that it gives you, I'm going to treat it like min b'minoi, because you wanted it there. So it ends up seeming like Ramah is following Teres Achatas, which is Rashi.
Yeah.
That says it's punitive. And it ends up seeming like, from the way Ramah describes min bin, meaning we had this discussion once before about what the definition of min bin minoi is. Is it min bin minoi a flavor issue, or is min bin minoi a title issue? Remember that we spoke about that once, and we were trying to figure out why would a title issue matter. Like, if they're all called carrots or whatever, all called face, then it's considered min bin minoi, even if the flavor is different. We had that once. And then the commentators were saying, what are you talking about? It's all a question of flavor, right? But here, the Ramah gives a different nuance. Well, in this case, because the question of min bin minoi is you're happy with the mixture result, then even if it's min bin minoi, but you're still happy with the mixture's results, I'm going to slap that prohibition on you and say you can't rely on nullification, and you got to wait till after Yom Tov because you wanted the color in the eggs bringing, you wanted the flavor the eggs bringing. So, but the
Ran is saying that would have to be bitten. It would have to be buckled in the mixture.
correct.
You're talking about something, so obviously, clearly it's not buckling. Why should it be permitted then, even according to?
So you're saying even according to the Ran, the Ramah thing would work.
Yeah,
That's true. That's okay. I hear you. You could say, in other words, that I would say.
you added the egg to something that was different to the soup, and you have the taste of it. I mean,
No. If you have the taste, then it's not bottled.
right.
But it's the kind of taste that you would have
You have
liked.
the color, you have the taste.
Yes,
Of course,
it's the kind
if
of-
you wanted that.
If you have it, then it's considered okay. So that's the other thing, which is if Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin works, only a problem when the isser is be'en. You can identify the isser. If it's only flavor, if it's only flavor, do I take it so far and say, oh, you can't even have the flavor?
What if that
Min bin minoi.
What if that egg
Right.
was nullified within a mixture of eggs, and then you put that in? Like,
A double one.
like
Yeah, the Shulchan Aruch is going to mention that if it happens twice. Where is it? Where it happens, where it falls into one, and then from that mixture falls into another.
Or even in this.
Do I say
example, you want
called the parish,
to-
Meduba Kaparish? That's going to come up, and where's it coming up? It's going to come up.
In this example where you wanted the white and only like the 60th of the white, where is it that? The one that's usser.
Say again?
Like if you wanted the white, but in the mixture of the whites, there was like a 60th of the usser.
Oh, where you scrambled up eggs and then you took from that mixture and put it in. It comes up. I'm trying to figure out where it comes up. It does come up. Maybe not in the Shulchan Aruch, maybe it's in the Shach and Taz. Yeah, Machlek Shach and Taz in Shach 2 and Taz 4. Yeah, we have a mixture, and then from the mixture falls into another mixture, whether or not it's still applied to Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin or not.
Yeah, but in my case, it's not just falls in, it's like you did it on purpose a little bit.
Okay, so no, you did it on purpose. You knew that it was forbidden to eat that egg.
To get the white.
No, but
So
did you know that?
purpose is not allowed.
Okay, so sorry, that's not
Whatever you
considered
did
purpose.
purpose.
You didn't purposely nullify the. You purposely added the eggs, yes, but you didn't purposely add the prohibited egg. Then you would have a problem. Yeah, I'll give you another example. Okay, you're making a good point about the Ran. I hear that. What about this? The Shulchan Aruch says that those who say that if the mixture will become, if the mixture is going to get lost, the flavor will get ruined by the time it becomes permitted. So you could rely on the nullification right now. Is that a Rashi thing or a Ran thing? Or both? It would seem like Rashi. Why Ran? If it's not nullified, it's not nullified. The fact that, unless you say, because so long as this thing lasts, it's forbidden, therefore it is considered type A and type B.
Yeah, you could say that it loses its taste, it's no longer the.
So for as long as its existence, it's still type A, type B. It's a much more subtle thing. And actually, it's easier. Look, we're slapping your wrist because we're preventing it from eating it right now because you like it too much, and we'll wait till when it's totally kosher. By the time we wait, then it's going to become forbidden. And according to Rashi, it's be'etzem bottle anyway. It's just because you might as well wait till later. But I can't wait till later. It's going to become. It's going to lose all that. It's going to be ruined. I'll lose the whole soup. So Rashi would say, "Okay, enjoy." It sounds better like a Rashi thing, not a Ran thing. Maybe you can also see it in Ran. So some of the limitation, in other words, once you say it's, and my point I'm making is, once you follow Ran, that it's be'etzem halachic gather of what is considered nullified or not, it's very difficult to put limitations on it. But the Shulchan Aruch is going to keep on putting limitations.
Ron says, right?
It's nullified. Well, the Shulchan Aruch says that. Everybody says that.
So to be nullified, it needs to be 60 against it, right?
Fine, no problem.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if it's gonna be ruined tomorrow,
Yeah.
and 60 against it, it's gonna be the same thing as if it was today.
Hold on a second.
And that would be
If it's
okay.
the enemy
That would
night,
still be okay.
if it's the enemy, it's bottled anyway.
So.
Rashi and Iran.
One second.
Right? It's the enemy. Okay. So it's bin minay. It's 60 to the ratio. So I have a rabbinic, because biblically it's only has to be roiv.
Right.
But rabbinic, so I have the rabbinic nullification.
Right.
It's in its own type. Ram would say this bittul never happened. Because there's no type A following type B. It's all one type. Because anyway, it's going to become kosher. But I don't have a refrigerator. And if I wait till after my 3-day Yom Tov to eat it, it's going to get spoiled. Can I eat it now? Shulchan Aruch says yes. And in Rashi, that makes perfect sense. Because according to Rashi, bittul did happen. We're telling you, don't rely on the bittul. Because you like it, you like the extra ounce in your soup. So wait till when it's totally kosher. You like the extra egg in your mixture. So wait till it's totally kosher. But the Ran is saying, bittul never happened here. So it's hard to imagine this halacha in Ran. Because once the Ran gives it like, this is the halacha classification, it's hard to start limiting it. Whereas when it's a question of, according to Rashi, it's certainly a chacham thing. Because you have the ability to eat a kosher later, don't rely on the bittul that you like so much. So then I could say, okay, in different situations, I'll say it's okay. Another example, the Shulchan Aruch is going to give, comes to kalim. I have a keli that absorbed something not kosher. Now this is a Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin. Why is Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin?
Gotcha.
I can kosherize it. Not a time thing, but it's still Mish Matirin. Yeah, and now that bowl is back in my cupboard. I don't know which bowl it is. I have to kosher all my bowls because it's not nullified even by 1,000 because I have the ability to. Says Shulchan Aruch Rama, that's too costly. Leave it alone. It's nullified.
You don't have to capture any of them.
Okay, so we're going to see in the Taz that if it's an opinion, some opinions say that over time you have to kosher all of them when it doesn't cost you as much. Others are going to say take one out because anyways you would have lost one. Right? But in principle, the Shulchan Aruch at least says, Ramah says, don't worry about it, nullified, it's okay. Right? We'll get to the halacha l'maisa on Wednesday, we'll see where we stand. Right? But again, here too, in Rashi's view, it would make perfect sense. In Ran's view, well, maybe you could say, Ran would say that Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin is only if time will make it kosher later. But if your actions are have to make it kosher later, then it's still two types right now.
That becomes a neder. Neder is that because you have to do an action for the matzah the neder.
Oh, but neder is different because neder, I have to do an action. I have to ask the Rav. But how does the halacha see these items? Halacha sees these items as one thing, not type A, type B. When I have one non-kosher bowl, the halacha actually sees them as two different things. Kosher bowl, not kosher bowl. So maybe the Ram will say that it is ein and minoi, and it is nullified. Right? But these things, each case, you have to like ask yourself, would it apply or Rashi, Ran? Because again, because the Shulchan Aruch, as it goes along, is to keep on going, limitations. Okay, mentioned that. One more case. One more case I want to mention, and this involves just 6 days, actually. Just like this. If you have, there is something which might become matirin later. An example of that. An egg that is born from a chicken. And this chicken, at the moment, is a treifa. But it might turn out that later it's not a treifa. It's a live chicken.
If it lives long enough. Then.
If it lives long enough, now it's not a treifa anymore. So in 10 months from now, I might find out that the egg was kosher. Might. Is that egg now not nullified? Because maybe it's going to be maybe I'll discover later that it's a treifa. Or actually, right now it's a treifa. But maybe later I'll find out that it's matirin. It's not in my hands. It's a time thing, but it's a time that maybe will happen. Yeah. So the Shulchan Aruch is
But
going
an
to.
egg from an oif that's not kosher at this moment.
It's not
and
kosher.
living, that would not be kosher.
It's not kosher.
It's got no kosher.
Correct. So this we say is considered davar. Or here we say, sorry, it's davar sheyesh lo matirin. Because it's not. I have no control over it, and it's not a definite that's going to happen, and therefore it will be nullified.
Therefore, it will be nullified.
Will be nullified.
Yeah.
Which is why you don't have to go check every single chicken that produces every single egg in every single supermarket, whether or not it's safe or not.
Right.
Nullified. Okay, do one more case, because it brings out that I've been here. It's a very cool case. What happens, and here's going to be a Rashi Ran separation. What happens if you have a egg that was born from an absolute treifa on Yom Tov? So you have two prohibitions on this egg. One is going to be matirin after Yom Tov,
But two, it's never.
but the other prohibition is never going to go away because it's treifa. And now that egg fell into a batter of 60 whisked eggs, 60 scrambled eggs. Yeah, nullified by 60. Can I have that egg in Yom Tov? Is it Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin? If it wasn't Yom Tov,
How is that different in the case that said that it became, we know that if we kept it in the fridge for 3 days, it would become, bad.
okay, let's say it's not going to be that way. The egg's been cooked. It's not going to go bad. It's not going to go bad.
Somebody, how is that different in that case?
Okay, let's see. Because if it wasn't Yom Tov today, would I rely on that nullification?
Yes.
Yes, I would. Yeah. So can I rely on the nullification now on Yom Tov anyway?
Sure.
Oh,
The same as the other case with the stuff that became not invalid in 3 days.
so if I follow Rashi, and this is what there's some who argue, if I follow Rashi, if you have the ability to eat something unless prohibition, do so. So one prohibition is never going away, the treifa. Okay, so you can't, it's never going away. But the Yom Tov prohibition will go away. So you might as well wait till after Yom Tov. Even though you're anyways going to be relying on nullification after Yom Tov. But that's a nullification I can't avoid.
The chicken
But the nullification of Yom Tov,
So when I say the chicken became kosher after the.
no, it didn't.
So.
Became more kosher.
I didn't
Became more
understand.
I had two prohibitions.
I understood that.
So one prohibition is going to go away.
Which prohibition is gonna go?
Prohibition of eating the egg that was born on Yom Tov.
Yes, that's gonna go away.
When Yom Tov is over. It's still a treifa, and if I'm still relying on nullification, because I'm relying on the fact that this is nullified in 1 in 60 other eggs, because it's a treifa egg. Following the case?
Yes.
So if I follow Rashi, let's see, if I follow Ran, let's go to Ran. If I follow Ran, yeah, where it's a question of, does Torah consider this nullified? Torah considers it nullified,
Yes, midnight.
right? Not just minoi. It's type A on type B. Type A is kosher eggs. Type B is treifa egg. Nullified. I don't care if it's Yom Tov today. Enjoy the eggs. Because type A, non-treifa, kosher, is nullifying type B, treifa, eat. Good. According to Rashi, Rashi's saying, of course nullification happens. I always know nullification happens. It always happens. I just want you to avoid as many prohibitions as possible and not to rely on nullification. Now, when Yom Tov is over, you're going to have to rely on nullification anyway, because it's treifa. But at least avoid the Yom Tov issue. So wait till Matzah Yom Tov. That's the way Rashi would say it. Even though many reasons relying on nullification when Matzah Yom Tov happens. But at least you got away with one less Isser. Follow? Now to have rules. You can eat it now on Yom Tov. And he says so even according to Rashi. Why? Explains the Alter Rebbe, the only time the Chachamim slap me on the wrist, the only time the Chachamim give you that punitive thing and say, I don't want you to rely on nullification, is if in the future you're never going to rely on nullification. But if you're anyways relying on application, okay, the whole point, this whole thing's pointless. Even though I know you're going to avoid one more isser, but I only want you to avoid nullification if you're going to end up at the end not relying on nullification. So I'm telling you, Hatzachain, a little skafia, a little self-control, because you're anyways going to, you can in the end eat it without relying on nullification. But in this case, you're going to have to rely on nullification. Okay, so you're relying on nullification anyway, enjoy. That's what Alter Rebbe says. So Alter Rebbe will learn that even in Rashi, others want him to say it's like it's Rashi Ran. Alter Rebbe learns even in Rashi that it would be also you're allowed to eat on Yom Tov because the Chachamim's injunction that Rashi is telling us exists, not to eat something and rely on bittul because later you can do without bittul, is only if taka later you can do without bittul. And in this case, you wait till after Yom Tov, okay, taka, you avoid the Yom Tov issue, but you're still relying on nullification anyway. Okay, so rely on nullification, even on Yom Tov.
Now explain how is that different than the one where the taste became invalid?
It became invalid like
Became
this.
bad by the time you.
In that case, like this, if you want to do Rashi or Ran,
What's the difference?
where Rashi would put it, let's imagine it's Rashi because it makes it cleaner. With Rashi. Rashi saying, as far as Torah is concerned, bittul happened here. The Chachamim are saying, don't rely on it because you can get away with eating it later when you don't have to rely on it.
Right.
In the case where it gets spoiled, I can't rely on later eating without nullification. That's going to be spoiled. No, in the case of trefa, I could eat it later. Because
You could eat it later.
if we're talking about nullified,
It's nullified.
correct. No, nullified now, I don't have. I cracked 61 eggs into a bowl, mixed them up,
You want to say.
and discovered that one of them was born on Yom Tov, and it's trefa.
I just want to understand.
So I could eat it later, but I'm relying on nullification when I eat it later.
And what about the thing that's spoiled?
I can't eat it later.
You can't eat
I can't eat it later.
it. Right. Spoiled, you're gonna throw
So
it.
now she's going to say, okay, I wanted to hold you off because I wanted you to eat it when you're not relying on nullification.
It's trash.
Right, but when you wait till if you wait till no, in the case of the spoiled, what's happening is that if I listen to Rashi and try to not rely on nullification, I will be eating spoiled eggs. And therefore, Rashi's saying, okay, rely on the nullification because I know, according to me, that nullification exists. It's just I don't want you to rely on it because you have the opportunity to eat it without relying on it. I don't have the opportunity to eat it without relying on it because later it's going to be spoiled. So my only option is to eat it when I not rely on it. So Rashi will say, okay, that's the only option. Go ahead, eat it. Rely on the nullification. But if you have option in front of you, rely on nullification or don't rely on nullification. Says Rashi, don't rely on nullification. Wait till after Yom Tov. But if it's going to be spoiled, so I don't have opportunity to rely on nullification. So then Rashi will say, okay, go rely on nullification. You have no option to avoid nullification, enjoy nullification. Which is why it's harder to learn in Iran. Because I'm saying it's a question of, is it nullified or not? And if it's not nullified, it's not nullified. It's harder to learn the heter of being spoiled later in Iran. Harder to. Even though in theory you could say, because for as long as this thing is edible, it's nullified, it is considered type A and type B. Maybe. But it's a harder thing to do. Clearness? Okay, so these are the principles that will govern everything we're learning in the Siman. It's a short Siman. With all that knowledge, it should be fairly straightforward to learn. The longest part is the Ramah at the end, which is going to add a list of limitations to Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin that the Shulchan Aruch seems to not mention, most of which we covered this morning. Okay. Good luck. Tzlach Rabba and our learning. So it's a fun, so yeah. Have a great day, guys. Good luck. Sorry?
Very clear and understandable.
Thank you.
What does face mean?
Ich means I, Vase means no. So it's either I know or it's ich weiß means I don't know. In both cases, it means I don't know. That's how Yiddish works. Expressionism and inflection mean everything. Ich weiß is the same thing as ich weiß nicht. Right? Ich weiß means I know.
Different
What basically means ich weiß nicht, I don't know. All right, have a great day. Good luck.
inflection.